everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Keanna and I'm also the art of phonology on all social media and Teachers Pay Teachers and on my blog, whatever. And I'm a 5th grade teacher in Metro Atlanta. I teach math, science, and social studies, and this is my 6th year of teaching, so welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I've actually been dreading this video for quite some time. It's December 31st and I wanted to reflect on the year that was 2020. Like almost all of you, this year was really tough. Yes, there were good times, but there are also hard times, and I'm still in the midst of some hard times, especially professionally. And so it is nice to reflect, but also I have anxiety about going back to work in a matter of a few days and finishing out this school year knowing that COVID is still very real, and just navigating so many other things that hopefully maybe one day I'll be able to speak to a little bit later. But without further ado, I wanted to just hop in and share like the top 5 lessons I've learned from 2020. So here we go. So before I jump in, I do want to just do like a recap of 2020. Not that anyone really needs to remember, but the year started really great. I was doing a lot of traveling at the beginning of the school 2020. It's really hard for me to even remember like what life was before March 12th or March 13th of 2020, because back then like it just seems like a continuation of 2019. Life was fun. I was going out, doing all the things I set out to do in 2020, because last year, 2019, I focused so much on my professional goals and I was able to achieve all of them, and that this year I wanted to work hard and play hard, which I kind of started the year with, but then we couldn't play hard at all because we were all at home. And finishing out my first year of 5th grade digitally was really tough, because those kids that I had taught for almost 3 years. So I was their 2nd grade teacher, their 3rd grade teacher, and then I came back to be their 5th grade teacher, and I didn't get to give them a proper goodbye or send-off before they went to middle school, and I moved schools. So I was leaving my school, didn't get to really say goodbye to my coworkers. I was leaving my students, couldn't see them, and it wasn't that they would be coming to see me for open houses or when their siblings have conferences. I moved to a school about 35 minutes away from my old school. So that was just really hard. So that was the first half of the year. Summer was nice. Lots of opportunities came. My personal brand, I guess, grew tremendously in a small amount of time, but it was also in a large part due to all of the violence against Black people that's been occurring forever, but that was definitely heightened over the summer. And that was just a lot more, that took a lot more of a mental toll on me than I anticipated it would, just because we've been seeing these things happen to Black people for years, but for some reason it really affected me this summer, and it was hard for me to navigate those feelings, especially knowing that my platform was growing as a result of people dying and my business was growing. I don't know. It wasn't a direct result, but just knowing that people didn't even know that I existed until other people passed away. And then, yeah, there's a lot that could be said about that. But that was really hard for me to even comprehend. And then starting the new school year in August at a brand new school, not knowing anyone, but also not being able to get to know anyone because we're all wearing masks. We need to stay in our classroom. We started digitally. Because that was what was safest, but then we ended up transitioning into hybrid, which is hard, teaching digital and in person all at the same time. My number of students were growing every week, and positive cases were popping up, and we're still teaching, and things are just really challenging, and just understanding a new school in the middle of a pandemic and trying to keep myself safe, making sure I'm not around my parents too much, because if I am a carrier, I don't want to carry that to my family members and all of the other things. This year's been hard. But that's just a quick synopsis of the year. So my lessons pertain to all those different things, the good and the bad. Some of these lessons I'm still working through, I would say, but yeah, not all of these lessons are like positive overcoming stories, because some of them are still things that I'm working through right now. The first lesson I learned in 2020 would be that there's no good outcome that can come without sacrifice. And my words are not super eloquent, but so I'm going to explain that a little bit. There's been lots of great opportunities that I had this year. I was able to fly to LA to be on a game show, but in order to have this awesome opportunity with someone that I've always admired, more information about that later. Hopefully that's something I can share in 2021. There was sacrifice. I had to take off 3 days of work, and it made at the beginning of the school year so hard for me. I paid the price of those 3 days away from work for at least 6 weeks, and it was so overwhelming. Just 3 days outside of the classroom, and we were still digital at that point, and it was so much catching up. Like, systems were completely thrown. It was so hard, and it made coming back to work so hard. Like, this great opportunity, that's such a blessing. I had to sacrifice my profession in some way. Or even with my relationship. I got in a relationship this year, and it's been one of the best parts of 2020. But I also have been growing my business and my brand, and so when I want to create products for Teachers Pay Teachers, that takes time. I have to sit in my room on the computer like 13 hours straight developing things or whatever, and that's time that I have to sacrifice in my relationship and making sure that I'm putting in time for that. It's hard to balance all the things. You want good to happen, but good still comes at a price. And that's been a really hard lesson for me to learn, because in my head I'm thinking, wow, I'm doing so much, like I'm doing all the things I want to accomplish, like I'm able to make money doing the things that I love to do for a hobby in addition to teaching, which I love to do, but that still I still feel like I'm paying a price in something else, whether that's professionally, personally, or in business. I can't do all three, and we know that we can't do all three things, but it's still kind of a hard pill to swallow when you feel like you're doing good and still there's a bad consequence, or maybe not bad, but a consequence that you hate that you would have to deal with, like not being able to spend time with friends or family, or not being able to just sit and watch Survivor endlessly or whatever. So that's a big lesson that I had to learn in 2020. The second lesson that I learned in 2020 is that sometimes you gotta ask for help. So I think last year one big lesson I had to learn was that I can't do it all. And so I was still attempting to do it all this year. I think it's just my nature, and I think as teachers a lot of us have this in our nature where you want to be the greatest teacher and you want to do the whatever else. But when I started to venture outside of just teaching and doing things on my blog or this YouTube channel, Instagram, all the things, there's lots of different facets to the art of phonology, and trying to do all of that as still be a quality teacher, it's hard. And I found myself just shutting down and not doing anything. Like, I have over 300 unread text messages, my DMs were falling flat, emails were getting checked, professional and business and personal. I just shut down because it's so much all the time, and I'm just one person, and I felt like so many people were needing things from me, and I'm still trying to navigate what it is to not even thrive in 2020, but to survive in 2020. So not only am I'm trying to survive, but people are wanting me to post sponsored content on social media, or friends are trying to talk, or they have their own traumas, and it's just a lot. So I realized that I have to, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, like just let people know that, hey, I need some help. And that's really, 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 really hard for me. A part of me knows that it's just kind of easier for me to shut down instead of acknowledge the fact that someone else can help me get something done. And I think in my relationship, my boyfriend has taught me a lot about asking for help. I think with him, a lot of times I don't even have to ask. He just knows, like, no, like, I know you need help, and he will help me. But just thinking about how much the help has helped me this year and alleviated a lot of pressure from myself. And it also just like takes the pressure off of me feeling like I need to do all the things. It still is something that's in the back of my mind. I don't think it will ever go away, but it definitely helps me feel a little less overwhelmed, being able to ask my teammates for help, or my friends for help, or my boyfriend. That is still a hard lesson, but is one that I definitely had to learn just to make it to this point of 2020. And I feel like I'm getting a little deep. I don't want everyone to think that like I spent all of 2020 crying or anything. Like I said, there's been lots of good parts, but 2020 has just been very heavy mentally. And I've been so fortunate in that I have not gotten sick. None of my friends have gotten sick. None of my family members have gotten sick. I don't know anyone that's been personally affected job-wise or anything like that. So I do know that I'm truly blessed, and this is not like a whine fest. These are just my true, honest feelings about this school year. Or I keep saying school year. The teacher in me cannot let this be like a calendar year. But that's just how I'm feeling about 2020 so far. The third lesson that I learned is to go for it. I went for it with so many different things that I never ever thought I would do. And I had so many new experiences in 2020 because I just decided, what do I have to lose? Like, this year's already going so crazy. What do I have to lose? It started in January when my district started opening up like this transfer process to move schools, which is I feel like January is super early. The school year ends end of May, and like you have 1 week to decide if you're transferring, let your admin know, interview at schools, and be accepted. You have like literally 10 days to get all of this done. So I had to get my resume together. I decided the day before I was able to push the button to transfer. I had to get everything ready, and I had interviews literally the next day. It all happened so fast right after we returned from winter break. So that's when the going for it started. And then from that point forward, it just kind of kept going for it again with the TV opportunity, going for it with my blog, starting a blog, going for it with this YouTube channel, going for it with a coursework to help me better further my business. I signed up for Casey Morris's program, Make Your Mark, and it is a commitment financially, but I also knew I was going for it because it would pay off in ways that would pay for the expense of that program, but also help me live a more comfortable life in my business later down the line. So there's just been so many ways that I've gone for it, and I think in a year like 2020, when you kind of have nothing to lose, I say I have nothing to lose, but again, I know that's a privilege for me to be able to say, simply because I still have my job and I have consistent income and whatever else. But if you are in a situation where you can take a risk, 2020 was the year to go for it. Not to say that you can't in 2021. Now that I have taken some risks, I want to continue that. But another lesson in taking risks and going for it is knowing that it's not going to always go well. I didn't know that there was going to be a pandemic when I decided to change schools, and so that's been really hard to navigate. I will be very honest about that, but I still went for it. I knew that I wasn't the happiest at my old school, and that's just something, like, that's just how it goes. You take your risk and you see where it takes you. Sometimes it'll be absolutely amazing and sometimes not so much, but that doesn't mean that you quit. The fourth lesson I learned in 2020 is going to sound ridiculous for people that are not perfectionists, and maybe even ridiculous for people that are perfectionists. But the fourth lesson I learned is that even when you can't do all the things, or even when you think you're completely failing, no one else really does. No one cares. No one's thinking like, oh my god, you're an absolute failure. In this year, I've felt like I failed so many times, and it's so hard for me to focus on all the good because I struggle with the thought of failing, and the failures may be small or even big. Well, to me, they're all big, but in the grand scheme of things, the only people that care about that are really you. And I've been struggling with thinking like, oh my god, everyone thinks I'm failing. And that's really also hard with social media, and just feeling like I'm not sharing the same content that I was because I'm not as great of a teacher as I was before pre-COVID. And I don't want to seem fake, and I don't want people to judge me. I don't want my new coworkers to see me on social media and think a certain way about me, like, oh, this girl. Just always thinking about what people are thinking about me, and feeling like people are always thinking about me. That's a very self-centered way of living life. And yeah, people really just don't care all that much. It's still hard to tell yourself that sometimes, especially when you feel like you're doing something wrong. You know that lesson didn't go as well. You feel like they're gonna go home and tell their parents like, oh my god, my teacher didn't, whatever. But that's all in my head, and that's something that I have to like get out of. Like, I will sit in a room and think like, oh, I know they're thinking about like how awful that was, and then I literally have to tell myself like, Keanna, no one cares. No one's talking about you. And if people are talking about you or thinking whatever, who cares? Who cares? Like, what is that going to change? Whatever happened, happened, and it just kind of is what it is. And that's something that was really, really hard for me to accept and learn, especially because I think the first part of quarantine, like that March to May part of the school year, I was like super creative, super innovative, still feeling like I was, I don't know, on the ball. And then school started this year, and I felt like nothing I was doing felt Keanna worthy. And even though all these people didn't know me, I felt like there was a lot of pressure, but really the pressure was me putting that pressure on myself, and I was not living up to who I thought I was, or maybe even who I still am. I don't know that that part of me has died. It's just that we're in a pandemic, and so it's okay that I can't do all those things, and that was really, 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 really hard for me to accept. So lesson 4, not everybody thinks you're a failure, because you know, we're living in a pandemic. Lesson number 5, the last lesson I learned in 2020 was to write it out. That's been very helpful for me, especially when I was not really adjusting too well to the beginning of the pandemic and being stuck at home and getting kind of stir crazy. I bought some journals on Amazon, and those really helped me, one, kind of better get to know myself. I've always been very confident in myself and how well I know myself. I took like 2 years to myself where I didn't date or anything, and I lived alone, and I felt like I knew myself very well. But this year, I think, could rattle anyone, even if the most confident people. And I felt myself, I don't know, at times I felt like I was just losing my mind. Like, I was overthinking so much that my mind felt like it was going a mile a minute. And I really had to like sit and write and organize my thoughts. So I did little things like puzzles, not physical puzzles, but like doing mazes or coloring on a map places that I like to visit, but also some deeper things, reflecting, doing a gratitude journal, always thinking about what I'm grateful for, because those are the kind of things that keep you going. And I would love to continue that in 2020. I even got some journals for my boyfriend and I, not like arguing journals or things like that, but just things to help us capture memories, like have questions, things that make you think and help you organize your thoughts. Like, it's just so important to have a journal where I just throw ideas out. So I have lots of different journals. I have one like a brain dump journal. I have a very lovely planner that I love for my business that helps me get all my ideas together. I just bought a new budget planner for 2021. I got a goals planner. Just being able to organize all the facets of my life and have it written down. And I know I love like my iPad and my Apple Pencil, but it's really nice to have that paper and pencil for me and have a book that I can hold, and each thing has its own place, and I'm able to not feel so overwhelmed. Like when I'm feeling overwhelmed with whatever facet of life, whether it's teaching, I have my Bible, which is my teacher planner. Whether it's business, I have this. Personal, like psyche, I have those sorts of journals. Writing it out has been so therapeutic for me, and I've loved that so much. It's just been so helpful. So those were my top 5 lessons of 2020. Of course, I've learned so many more lessons, and there's been a lot of good with the bad. I'm not gonna sit here and like list my hardships or list my accomplishments. But this year was definitely one for the books. I think everyone could say the same. But we made it, guys. It's December 31st. In just a few hours, it'll be January 1st. And I know everyone's like, well, nothing's gonna change but the day and the date. But really, I just think about the excitement that everyone felt going into 2020 and the spirit that there was, and how we all felt kind of crushed with the events of 2020 because we all had high expectations. So yeah, it's just a day, and yeah, it's just a date, but there is like a sense of refresh or refreshing, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, that we feel going into this new year. So even though it's just going to be a few hours difference, it's not really going to be something super significant. I think the mindset shift and hopefully the mood shift and the spirit, the atmosphere, everything, I am grateful for 2021, or hopeful for 2021, grateful to have made it to 2021. And I am a little bit nervous about saying things like, oh, best year yet, or best year ever. I think 2020 definitely taught us to be a little more humble with our expectations, but I am looking forward to knowing that there will still be growth, and there's lots of things that we learned in 2020, like coming together, supporting others, and I think those sorts of lessons also will transcend into the next year, and I'm looking forward to see how that plays out as we hopefully become healthier, stronger, and all of those sorts of things. But that is my reflection for 2020. I will see you guys in a few days when I share my goals for 2021. I hope you guys have an amazing new year, and I'll see you guys next time.